I've been a Star Wars fan for decades. One of the most circulated falsehoods among the uninitiated was that George Lucas is greedy with merchandising. Many or most of the people who believe this inaccurate drivel were informed by the hilarious scene from Spaceballs.
Spaceballs the flamethrower! The kids love this one.
The reality is that the notion that George Lucas is greedy couldn't be further from the truth. Exhibit A.
When you're a beginning filmmaker, you're desperate to survive. The most important thing in the end is survival, and being able to get to your next picture. I ended up in a funny situation where I had written a screenplay, but the screenplay was so big that I couldn't possibly make it into a movie. So I went down and I said, okay, well, I'll get rid of the first 2/3 of it, the second 2 acts, and I'll just do the first act. I can make that into a movie. That's sort of big enough. And at that point, I made a pact with myself that I was going to make all 3 movies. And in order to do that, as I started to make my deal with 20th Century Fox, I acquired the sequel rights because I didn't want them to bury the sequel. I wanted to make these movies, and I was determined to make these movies, regardless of whether they wanted to or the movie made any money or not. And then I got the merchandising rights, which weren't anything at the time, because there was no such thing as merchandising on movies. Some TV stuff, but not movies. Their lifespan is just too short. But I figured I could make posters, I could make t-shirts.
In 1977, Star Wars shirts and other items were being sold in comic books. This shirt could be purchased from a form in the soundtrack record.
Everything is sort of a struggle, again, to survive, which is the studio won't put enough money into your movie to get it into the theaters, to do the advertising. So I will say, well, I don't have any money, but I can maybe make a t-shirt deal, and I can maybe make a poster deal, and I can maybe get these out at science fiction conventions and things before the movie comes out.
At San Diego Comic-Con 1976, almost a full year before the film's debut, this poster was being sold.
So I did it as sort of self-preservation. I'm a San Francisco filmmaker, I'm an independent filmmaker, I don't have a lot of resources, so I really have to think about how I'm going to get not only through this movie, but how I'm going to get it promoted and how I'm going to then hopefully have it make enough money to allow me to get to do the next movie. And as it turned out, the film was so successful, we were able to make toy deals, and we began to start the whole idea of action figures, of tie-ins, of toys that go along with movies. And over the years, that's one of the things that's helped me stay independent, be able to finance my own movies, and stay in business, really.
This is in line with what George said in Star Wars Insider number 45. To his point, the early bird certificate would not have been necessary had there been a plan to simply merchandise the film. Kenner revolutionized the toy industry with Star Wars figures. The original line continues to grow in value as the decades go on. Merchandise, especially the toys, made tons of money for Lucasfilm and funded the sequel, The Empire Strikes Back. Not only did they fund the film itself, they funded its independence.
I was not happy with Hollywood. I didn't want anything to do with them. I never made a movie in Hollywood, actually. I've made them everywhere else but Hollywood. And as a result, I had to have all my own stuff. As a result of that, I said, why should we use this equipment and this stuff when we can make it better? There were no visual effects houses, so I had to invent one. And so I did that, and then as a process of that, learning about digital technology and learning about, that sort of thing, I said, we could make this better. We could take the computers and we can make editing better. We can make cinematography better. We can make visual effects better. So I went to them and I said, look, I'll take my salary. I'm not going to ask for $1 million. I signed the deal memo, and that's what I believe in. But everything is not mentioned in the deal memo. I'm going to relook at. And that was one, sequels, because I'd already written the 3 movies, and I knew I wanted to make them, regardless of whether the first one made any money or not. So I was operating on the fact the movie would be a turkey. They wouldn't want to make the next one. They would then say, well, we own the rights, you can't do it. And so out of that, I got the sequel rights. The licensing, which was the other part of this, didn't exist. Just there wasn't such a thing. So, especially in the movie business, a little bit in television, but not in the movie business, because it takes a year or two to make toys. You can't just do it, and the movie comes out, and it's out for 6 weeks, and that's the end of it.
In the Star Wars archives, the following was shared. Lucas gave half his profit points to members of the cast and crew who had worked for minimum wage. If you define greed as wanting desperately to be independent of Hollywood studios and to make the films you want to make with the only constraint being your ability to pay to make those films, then sure, George was greedy.